paradigm when President Paul Biya, who took over in 1982, decided to introduce multi-party politics. At this time, it was aimed at bringing a balance and ensuring that Cameroonians are given freedom of speech and expression to take their destiny into their own hands and make decisions that will affect the nation. But with that, with the implementation of multi-party politics in 1990 and the reintroduction of freedom of speech and expression and freedom of association, where individuals had the right to open their political parties, lots of development became or were hanging in the balance. And between the period of 1990 to 2021, where we are, and taking us back to the period of 1966 to 1972, where we lived the to 1972, when we lived the immediate reunification, what has been the development of Cameroon, comparing and contrasting the period of one-party system with multi-party politics? Is the problem of Cameroon good governance or multi-party politics? This is House of Commons with me, Tamai Jarvis. On today's edition, we will also be looking at the Bamenda Babaju route. The situation of the Bamenda Babaju, the Cameroon government is of the opinion that the issue why the road is not or has not been constructed so far is because of insecurity, whereas others are of the opinion that the government is not serious as far as constructing the road. Here in the studio, I'll introduce my guests with whom we are going to continue our discussion. We are with two of our guests who are here to make their arrival here. Mr. Mungwa of the Cameroon People Democratic Movement, CPDM, who earlier indicated that is on his way stuck in traffic, and we are equally expecting Antem Andrew Ebako, who will be joining us here in the studio. We have the National Communication Secretary of the Popular Action Party, PAP, Mr. Njini Elvis. Mr. Njini Elvis, it's a privilege to have you, and thanks for joining us on yet another edition of House of Commons.
Thank you, Tamai Jarvis, for inviting me onto your platform once again. Good afternoon to my co-panelists here already in the studio. Good afternoon to all viewers of My Prime. I must say it's always a pleasure when we are given such an opportunity to discuss things that can, at least in one way or the other, foster growth within our country. I want to extend my regards to all the faithful militants of the PAP party, and of course to all the suffering lot of the British Southern Cameroons.
Thank you very much. Also here in the studio, we have one of the most active, vibrant lawyers in Cameroon, in the person of Barrister Ewule, who have been a right activist in terms of defending the right of journalists in Cameroon whenever they raise a contrast between doing the job and looking at what the government wants. Barrister Ewule, thanks for joining us. It's a privilege to have you.
Thank you very much, Jarvis. It's always a pleasure for me to be on your platform. And I want to use this opportunity to greet all the televiewers that are watching us all over the nation, and that it is important for us to always dissect some of these very important issues that touch on our lives. So I'm happy to be here. I'll just take some time to talk about what happened in the this week that just ending. We had to lay to rest one of the finest women politicians in our nation, that is Right Honorable Monjoa Lifaka Emilia. It was a very sad day yesterday at the Independence Square in Buea, where the mortal remains was brought for a pontifical mass that was chaired by Archbishop Kmer. From all indication, it showed that late White Lifaka was a very powerful lady. She was a loyal and a patriotic Cameroonian, because she showed so much in her party, the CPDM, and she did a lot for her constituency.
Okay.
I also want to use this opportunity to say, to express my heartfelt condolences to the Bewi family, and that we stand with them during this difficult moment.
Thank you very much, Barrister Ewule. And also here in the studio, we are privileged to be joined by Mr. Amungwa, who is of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM. He is equally from the Tuba constituency. Mr. Amungwa, it's a privilege to have you here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. It's a privilege being back on the platform once more. And I want to extend my regards to all the televiewers, the head of state, President Pobia, the head of government, and all televiewers, and equally my co-panelists who are in our midst here. You're all welcome, and I wish you a splendid and happy Sunday.
I'll begin with you, Mr. Amungwa. I know you're just coming in, you were supposed to catch your breath, but I'll start with you because of the urgency of the topic before moving to the other members of the panel. We are looking, the first topic is which is Cameroon's problem, good governance or multi-party politics. We've seen that during the 1966, when President Mangwa amalgamated all the different political parties, we saw a rapid development in Cameroon. But with the multi-party politics introduced by your party chairman, President Biya, many Cameroonians are of the opinion that the multi-party politics was just introduced to derail Cameroonians as of what needs to be done. So far, that development is stagnant and a lot has not been done.
Well, yeah, I think when we have to talk about democracy today, we should be able to allow freedom of speech and expression, and in this perspective, it is imperative that more voices can be heard through the formation of the multi-party system, which is the system of the Cameroon governance today, which I don't think it's actually preventing development and progress, as you just mentioned, Jarvis. Rather, it's created a form to boost development and allow democracy to excel all through the national territory and to the behest of the citizens and Cameroonians within and beyond. In this perspective, where you said many of these multi-partisms are actually just maybe window dressing, and I don't think so. We, first of all, we should first of all be able to review and be able to define within the context of multipartism and democracy, and look into ourselves. We can talk about the various political parties involved. Their hands are very, very open, and with democracy put in place by the head of state, President Pobia, there are no barriers when it comes to democratization processes and getting development being enhanced.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amungwa. While we await the arrival here in the studio of Mr. Andrew Atemebeko, Mr. Ebako will be here in a couple of minutes. I will continue with you, of the PAP party. Ginny Elvis, you listen to Mr. Amungwa. I want to ask you the same question before welcoming our guest who just made his arrival here in the studio. We are looking at the multi-party politics, and we are looking at Cameroon's problem. Is Cameroon's problem governance or multi-party politics?
I think both are a problem to Cameroon. Both the governance and the multi-partism. They are both problems that Cameroon faces. Let me begin with multi-partism in the first place. You know, if multipartism, if the leeway is given for many parties to be created as a means of democracy, then I think that it's a failure, because it is not when we have 1,000 political parties that we may tell the world, or that it tells the world that we are a democratic country. Because when you look at the number of parties we have in Cameroon today, over 300 and maybe around 17 of them.
317?
Exactly. The question is, who are these politicians creating all these political parties? What objectives do they actually have for Cameroon as a nation, or for Cameroonians as a people that they actually intend to lead? So you will discover that in reality, what happens is that I want to think in 1990, when Mr. Biya Paul was twisted to give way for multipartism, he profited by that to simply, should I say, orchestrate the creation of as many political parties as possible, to rather create division within the opposition. Because when you look at most of the parties that we say, if you look at the 317 parties, if you ask Cameroonians, they may not be able to name to you more than 10 political parties that they know of in this country. Why? Because many of them are created and they are inactive. No one actually ever hears of them anywhere. They do not do anything. Some of them, even within election periods, we don't see them, we don't hear of them. And some only spring up during that election period to create confusion within Cameroonians, distract people, and at the end of the day, that we saw in the past elections in Cameroon, you hear them talking about forming their G20s and going back to support the ruling party which they claim they are opposing. You cannot be opposing someone by joining that person. You cannot be opposing someone by rallying your votes and sending back to the same person you claim to oppose. So I want to think that multipartism, normally in normal circumstances, we could maybe in Cameroon hope to have maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 parties maximum, you see, where Cameroonians rally behind them in bulk, and then from there they can be able to have an impact on the field. But when you have political parties that are sometimes even not known within the families of those who create them, I want to think that multipartism in Cameroon is more of a problem, because it has rather come to create division within Cameroonians, within the opposition, and it's rather acting to the favor of the regime in place. Now, coming back to governance, I want to think that there is everything wrong about governance in this country, Mr. Tamai Jarvis. Everything is wrong about this country when it comes to governance, because already the very first thing I would tell you is that corruption already, for instance, is a key factor that has crippled this country, and it stems from what? The governance, the system put in place. And this will remind me to say something that, you make, for someone who came to power without a political agenda, it is a problem to Cameroon. Because if maybe our present head of state had been legitimately voted into office and that he had a manifesto, he had an agenda for Cameroonians, maybe things would have been different. But we know he was surprised with power, and he never perhaps had any agenda of his to put in place. So unfortunately, he has incarnated a system for over 3 decades now that has not permitted Cameroon to advance in any way, because the greatest problem we have, like I've mentioned already, is corruption. And you know, corruption is something that, how do I put it, it frustrates citizens. Okay. It frustrates the common man, especially those underprivileged, to see the resources of their country being wasted by people who are privileged to rule the country. I don't want to say people who are privileged to have offices. People who are privileged, who are given the opportunity to rule the country, but they rather prefer to take state money, okay, and they use it to their own best interest rather than using it to the interest of the country.
Briefly, I want you to react to this. You made a statement that the Biya's government has made it possible for everybody to open political parties, that normally there should be at least 3 or 5. That are you blaming the Biya's government for creating a forum where PAP came into existence? Are you saying that Biya's government should be blamed for PAP?
Thank you very much. That's a very pertinent question. What I am saying is this. Let me say it in another different way.
Because if PAP it can be a political party, what stops another Cameroonian to form its own political party?
Let me answer in another different way. Let me use different words. What I'm saying is this. Of the 317 political parties we have in Cameroon, many of them are CPDM satellite parties. Parties motivated by the regime in place to create.
You don't have evidence to back that up. That they are.
The evidence is clear, parties. Mr. Tamai Jarvis. When people stand up and they militate for more than 10, 15 years, claiming to be of the opposition, and when it's election time, they tell you that they are voting for the CPDM, then you understand that they have been there working for the system and not actually working against that system as it's supposed to be. When a political party leader goes out to campaign for elections under the canopy of his own party, but wearing the t-shirts of a different political party, how do you explain that to Cameroonians?
Democracy is Vivian Sam.
And that is what we are saying. That's why I'm saying that multipartism has not come to help the situation in this country. It has not come to cripple the situation in the sense that it is not because we have 317 parties that it tells us that we are democratic. It is not because we have 370 parties that it tells us that the system is a transparent one. On the contrary, I'm saying that many of the parties have been created with the intention of creating confusion and division within the opposition, within the ranks of that opposition.
So PAP is not among that.
We are not among the satellite parties that work to support the regime at the background.
Okay. Before coming to Barrister, let's welcome Andrew Bako. You're welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, and to all the panelists who are here this Sunday and all the viewers of my media plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm privileged to have you. And now let me come to you, Barrister. Before coming to Mr. Atem, since he has been following the discussion to react based on what everybody may have contributed. We are looking at the governance issue here. Is it the issue of governance? You're a legal mind. Are we talking about governance issue or the issue of multi-party politics that was introduced in 1990? Because if you look at 1960, 1966, we had more development. The Wada Dam, we had the Menchu 4. We had the Wada Development Corporation. We had the Yoke Dam. We had a marketing board. A lot of things were still in place between the time. But 1990, multi-party politics, we are in a chaotic environment.
Okay, I'll start by saying that it is the right. It is the constitutional right after 1990, especially in 1996 constitution, that Cameroonians are free to create their party. This one, it should be very clear. It is constitutionally correct. Look at the electoral code, look at other international conventions that have been signed by Cameroon. It means that what? Because you should understand that before 1990, we had one party system, and it was other politicians like Ni John Fundi, Ben Muna of late, and other people who said we cannot continue to be in a state where there's just one party. You know, there was a serious march in Bamenda, in Yaoundé, against the coming of multipartism. You heard, you know, of the Dimabola. That was in the 90s. But the head of state came up and said, yes, there will be time for multipartism. And you cannot say that multipartism has not had an effect in the political life in Cameroon, in even the development in Cameroon. We know of how the SDF have seen how to force change. It was the SDF who started talking about the issues of corruption. It was only after SDF raised the issue of corruption that the state had to put
the state also demanded that they don't have evidence.
But I'm saying that later on, the state saw that there was need to come up with an anti-corruption movement, and that is why you see most people are in jail now for corruption. So what I'm trying to say is the coming up of multipartism is, we cannot say it is a blessing to Cameroon, because Cameroonians, there have been some change. But what is the problem with all the other parties is that if you look at the way Cameroon is structured, you will see that it is different from other countries. For instance, look at Nigeria. In Nigeria, we had one party that had dominated politics for so many years, that's the PDP. But some politicians like Buhari, like Tinubu, and Erufai, and all the other politicians, they were members of the PDP. They left the PDP, went and formed the APC. They left the PDP and went and formed the APC. But if you look at the way Cameroon is structured, all the top guys that can bring meaningful change in the political landscape of this country are in the CPDM. They are in the CPDM. And the way the country is structured, it is very difficult for those top guys to leave the CPDM to form a stronger force to fight this party. That is why you see when you look at the opposition parties in Cameroon, they are not that strong. Mr. Jarvis, I'll tell you something. We had a financial bulldozer in Cameroon here, who during the last presidential election 2018 openly supported an opposition party. Do you know what the government did? The government just went and increased taxes, and the man was crying. The man cried, and
the problem now is governance.
No, wait. I'm coming to governance. I'm just looking.
Okay,
let us finish about the issue of multi-party. So in Cameroon, for a regime that has been in place for over, because Paul Biya is just continuing the legacy of Amadou Ahidjo. You know, it was a CP, it was a CNU that was just changed to CPDM. So it is a very strong, they are deeply rooted. That is what I'm telling many people in this country, that they are saying that CPDM are in their last days. I say, you people are not seeing the horizon. It is very difficult to challenge or to remove this regime in place, because the regime is deeply rooted. It's very deep.
So are you saying that Cameroonians should just pray?
No, what I'm saying is, for this regime, for us to have a regime change and a change in Cameroon, the top guys, it is not the top guys in the CPDM, need to be sensitized, and they need to look for a dream, a particular person to follow. Because if we continue like this, to be honest with you, this regime will still continue in power. That is, let us be very clear, and we will still continue to have mushroom political. Look at what is happening with our parliament. In our parliament, 90% is CPDM, and that is why you see you don't have any private member bill. All bills are coming from the presidency. It is because why? That is, and you see the president.
The law made provisions for private member bills.
Of course. SDF, they come up with private member bill, but it cannot pass because they don't have the majority of, they don't have the majority in parliament. You see, from the time in 1996 or that the SDF refused to go to during the parliamentary election, and that was the end of other political parties.
Okay, and following the
governance. Okay, the issue of governance, it is a major problem with our country, and that is what has caused all the developmental failures. The issue of governance, because the CPDM regime and the government, they have put in place a governance system where there is lack of checks and balances. Look at our roads, look at the project, look at the Lompanga Dam, look at the Mevele, look at all the projects, Nanga and Boko. These are projects that if they could have gone to completion, we will not have problem of light in the whole of Cameroon. We still have problem of light, we still have problem of water with all of these projects, because why? They are not, you don't have checks and balances. Look at even the stadium that was put in place. Monies have just gone. Look at the COVID money now. So it has put in place the government have put in place a governance system which does not have check and balance. And secondly, sir, before you take the mic from me, in other countries, the head of the region, that is the governors, should be given the powers to carry out developmental projects. But our governor, no, please, our governor, let me tell you something. The issue of the regional council should be a discussion for another day, because up till now, the regional councils don't have the power. The person who has the power in the region is the governor,
and the constitution does not give the governor that power.
No, that is what I'm saying.
The president who is the chief executive officer of that region.
No, please. It is, let me tell you, and that is where we have the problem, because if you give the governor is only there for security. That's all the work of the governor. To be honest, that's what work of the governor. The governor is in Boya, but go to Boya, you have a lot of projects there that if the governor had the powers to manage those projects, things will move on.
But the government says they have entered effective decentralization. That's why they have regional council presidents.
And
the law gives them that power to take developmental projects. What is keeping this regional president to do that?
And this is what we are saying, that the regional presidents might not have the powers, because let me tell you, if you look at that regional bureau, they say that before in their meeting, the governor must be part of that meeting. In fact, if they say anything out of, the governor has the power to close the meeting, to stop the session. And they have
That's not constitutional.
No, I'm saying that you have the law. That law, it says that what if they discuss something out of their scope, the governor has the power to stop it. And now the powers of this regional council, it is limited.
Okay, I will be coming back to you, council. We will visit that. I think Mr. Mungwa is a councillor. He will have to talk to on that. Before we come to Ateme Bako, let's read a brief message. Let's read some messages. Greetings, comrade. Happy to be part of your debate topic this afternoon. To my own point of view, governance is our greatest problem in this country. Why do I say so? My reason is because those who are supposed to see to the well-being of their people are rather greedy. They don't see their fellow countrymen as important. So if people coming up with their own party should be because of hunger. Thanks, Mr. Julius Kuma Yungwe from Ndokpasi Douala. This other one really says, hello, Mr. Tab, Mike Jarvis, and panelists. Happy Pentecost Sunday to you all in the studio. My special kudos to Mr. Njini Elvis. He is touching just where the shoe is pinching. Charles writing from Yaoundé. This one reads, say, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Jarvis. Democracy was not brought by the current regime, but it was rather a wind of change in 1990. He had no choice than to embrace multipartyism. Despite democratic aspiration of some Cameroonians, Cameroon is a dictatorship. It's Ngole Hane from Limbe. This other one reads, say, good afternoon to you all. Happy Sunday to you all. I come to you, Mr. Atem. You've listened to the discussion on the different members here present. You are a Pan-Africanist. When we look at this topic in terms of which is Cameroon's problem, is it democracy or multi-party politics?
Well, I think that history here will play a lot when we have to make certain analysis on how we would want our society, our nations, and how the future should look like. You know, history has negative sides and positive sides. From the negative side, we can learn and make some adjustment. And the positive sides, we can use that positive energy to influence a better tomorrow and to make decisions that can reflect the spirit of our people. You come to realize that when we talk on talking about democracy, to start with, democracy does not even exist. And in very civilized society where we have a democratic system, you come to realize that they are built by dictators after having built a legacy, an economy which favors their national interest and their foreign interest. They bring in now a system called democracy, which gives the people the impression that the power is rotational. And that is why you realize that in the West, we see a democracy being practiced there. And even at that level, there are so many complaints of elections being rigged, but at the real essence of democracy, it is the minority that controls the majority, because the democracy that most of the elections we see conducted in many civilized society, it is just like the same team organizing a friendly match. So it doesn't matter whether Biden rigs election or Trump did not rig election. The system is put in place to favor the content of that nation and their foreign interests. So that is the way democracy was brought in, was to protect a built legacy that has been exploited from the how will I put it, from the disadvantages of other people's ignorance. And that is how we saw in 1887 when George Washington was instituting democracy in America. But now coming to Africa, it is just like, when we talk of democracy, Africa has not gotten to that level. Very few countries are almost emerging to even start practicing a system that they have achieved out of hard work and building a legacy for their future generation. But here in Cameroon, we cannot talk about democracy because Cameroon has not achieved anything. So what if you are talking here of elections? under normal circumstances, if the Cameroonians were living well and everybody is not in any stress, hardship, where people are, I mean, the life standards of people are improved in Cameroon, where they are doing well in all areas, many of these leaders we have in power will not be in power if elections were to be conducted.
Mr. Atem, I want us to talk about history. I want us to look at now the multi-party politics that we had. In 1966, we were under the federal structure, but there was the amalgamation of political parties to form one party system. And between that period of 1966 to 1990 to 1982, when Biya took over, I want us to look at these two periods now, between the period when we didn't have multi-party politics and the period that we had multi-party politics. Which is better in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of politics, in terms of economy, in terms of education, in terms of culture, and in terms of generally, which is better? Was it the period where we have we had one party system, or the period that we are now championing that we are in a democracy? Since you said democracy doesn't exist, because in that period we didn't have a kind of democracy per se. We had a pan-Africanistic way of doing things that IJO instituted in 1966.
Well, I'm glad that from your first statement you have already cited that we have two different individuals in the first instance, which tells you that Ayijo brought in a one-party system and then Biya brought in a multi-partyism. So this already tells you that these are two individuals with two different visions. And then you still look at the very two individuals and their visions, you come back to realize that the state of governance affects their visions into implementations of the reality of what their visions hold for their people. Because when you look at the vision of Ayijo that we say that was transferred over to Paul Biya, you cannot run the vision of another person, except that it is your own vision. So I don't want to believe that Biya bringing multipartyism was trying to, I mean, fast forward the vision of Ayijo. Those are two different things. And then if one look at the context of these two things, I would agree that having to have a one-party system was a good initiative. But we are looking at a form of government here which is very challenging. Ayijo did not enter power through an election. The people did not vote or elect Ayijo to be a president in Cameroon. We should be
for his first mandate, but the second mandate.
For his first, no, we are talking of foundations. We are not. We are talking here of foundations. His first mandate, he was appointed. Yes. And this is the same way we got the second head of state in Cameroon. He was appointed. And after that, we started having elections, giving the people the impression that leadership is rotational. How do you explain the fact that one person forever since 1984 has never been won in any election? That is a very gross, wide range of an abuse of democracy. That tells us that power is hereditary and not rotational.
That maybe is liked by the people now.
No, those are
the same people come and give motion of support.
No, these are all propagandas we have seen in so many African countries. We are not ignorant about this thing. You cannot tell me how in a country such as this the government becomes the largest employer. How do you explain that? Where the head becomes oversized, that has engulfed the whole body. These are very challenging things that you cannot explain. So what I'm saying here is that the opposition parties are just like lawyers who want to make money from the people's problem. They are not out for any good, because to start with, democracy does not exist. I have said that it is a minority that controls the majority. You see, the world is controlled by a system equally as Cameroon is controlled by a system. So all of these forms of one-party system, multi-partyism system, falls under a system which was brought into Cameroon, not by the Cameroonians. And that is why you realize that whether it is one-party system or it is multi-partyism system, we will still have problems in Cameroon. Whether it is federation or it is decentralization or it is two-state federation or it is 10-state federation, we will still have problems in Cameroon. Why? Because a system which is put in place is what is causing the problem in Cameroon. And that's why we talk about the form of governance. So you come to realize that if you take these same actors and put them in a well-scrutinized system, they will do well. You take these same actors and put them in a corrupt system, you get this kind of result. So the issue here, no, listen. The issue is the issue is a system. It is a system that produces the products and quality of leaders that represent or who function in that system. So if you bring in a bad system like what we have in Cameroon, every other organization or institution you put in place, either to mitigate or to keep down a crisis, will only instigate more violence. We have seen right to decentralization.
Somebody like Barack Obama, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, Nelson Mandela, someone like George Bush, if he's made president of Cameroon within the system, will not have good results. Are you saying somebody like Muammar Gaddafi will not have good results? The late Magufuli will not have good results?
That is, you are raising a very good point here, and that's why you come to realize that systems are stronger than persons. How do you explain the fact that a man almost entering 90 years enters a plane, has no fear of plane crash, to go and meet a boy of 43 years to tell him a plan he had for his country, is to tell you that systems are bigger and older than persons? And that is why you realize that you see a man doing things which sometimes are very challenging. Okay. You wonder, but how is this possible? That is a system, and that's how Cameroon is. Right down to the last blood of Cameroonian, almost all Cameroonians today are corrupted. It's a system in place. So to start,
like we saw it from V. Mukete bowing down to the Speaker of the House of Assembly,
for example. And I don't want to go to that, but all I'm just trying to say here is that if we are talking of multipartism, governance, and all of those things, we need to change the system. Okay, so and the indications of the systems are very clear. Our independence was being negotiated. We did not claim independence by fighting for it like we saw with other nations. We negotiated ours. So there are certain existing treaties which our leaders are subject to, whether you like it or not, and that also plays at the expense of the population. And that is why today we raise up with so many questions. Why is this not done? Why is this not done? Many of the administrators who are up there understand that the national cake is being divided and majority of the portion is taken out of the country. So everybody is like, if I don't get mine, it's going to go away. And that's why that is a birth of corruption. Okay. Until we begin to build systems that conforms to our people, we would keep having this kind of problem. So the issue here is not really persons. There are people who have entered into the government with very good will. People have entered into group organization with very good will. And when they get there, they realize that there was an existing system which they did not see from outside. It was only when they had entered. And that system started influencing them. It's just like a court. How does a man go to kill his mother or his wife? Because he's left with a condition that is very challenging. So these are systems I'm talking of, that if we don't change this system, Jarvis, we are going nowhere with all of these things.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. The problem in Cameroon is multi-party. CPDM have many sub-parties that have made me not to vote because I don't know if at the end my vote will be transferred to CPDM. If each party can stand on its own without transferring vote to another party, then I think power will change hand and other things will change in this country. I would prefer to taste change in bitterness than enjoying in the same bitterness. Marceline from Yaoundé. Please, good afternoon, Mr. Jarvis. That the images are crashing. I think that should be from your own end, the decoder from your own end. Hello, Mr. Jarvis. Party discipline within the most powerful party politics, which is CPDM, delete the democracy in our country. We are still waiting for MPs CPDM to talk about Anglophone crisis in the glass house. Max Beying from Germany. Stanley from Bamenda Right says hello to you in the studio. We neither have a governance problem or multi-party politics. Well, Cameroon is okay. Thank you, Stanley from Bamenda. I come to you, Mr. Mungwa. I think we are running up with this topic. You have a say, everybody have a say, so I'll move to our second topic, which is the Bamenda Babaji Road crisis. Mr. Mungwa, your party is talking about the system. That is a system that has a problem, and that the system is based on the premise that we never had independence like other nations who fought for their independence. Are we saying that your party is negotiating the future of Cameroonians to fit into this treaty that is talking about? Or your party, what's your party hiding? Is there a treaty as such? And if not, can we say that the period for mono-party politics, where we had just one party, was better than this period now? Because your chairman, there's a Lume Stadium is under construction, but your chairman has never been there, which is just beside his house. Aijo came to Balenga, Gamasuku, Muliko, Boya, and other institutions in Cameroon.
Well, thank you once more for giving me the floor, Jarvis. regarding what Mr. Bako, a co-panelist, just mentioned. I would be curious for him to tell us, and I'll be curious for him to tell us the manifesto of other parties, if he is condemning the system. If you look volume 3 of the political science and political science and administrative growth promulgated in 2015, December 2015, you will realize that from the pressurizing and increase of demands from the Bretton Woods and international organization in improving on the democracy and good governance in Africa, Cameroon is one of those countries which actually has embraced the good governance and this promulgated policies in 2015. And there is no party which will come up and want to walk out of the scheme of the policies put by the Bretton Woods and the international organizations. We are talking about good governance, we're talking about management, we're talking about decentralization, and we're talking about state policies. And I will bet you that each party, irrespective of the ruling parties in place so far, if it comes up or take over governance in Cameroon today, they can't go beyond this standard policies of good governance put in place.
So the issue is not to go beyond the standard.
Yes.
Let me ask you my question now. Do you believe there's a governance crisis in Cameroon? Do you feel like we have good governance in Cameroon? All those things you articulated, do you believe we have them? Do you believe your party is pushing towards Cameroonians, towards those standards that embrace good governance? And
yes, yes. Eventually, the ruling party is pushing. My party is pushing
that
towards
the
that.
Bamenda Railroad, which was promised by a president for decades, is not being done.
No, I think that's a topic which still to come yet. But so far, I want to
abandoned in the
I want to irritate on the governance issue. That my party actually is pushing to meet up with the policies of good governance put in place. If, for example, you talk about decentralization, regional balance, and all whatnot, these are already institutions, state institutions, which are being put in place to meet up with good governance. You agree with me that Cameroon even is one of the last countries so far now within West and Central Africa. Ivory Coast had already, they had regional councillors few years ahead of Cameroon. That was to meet up with the international organizations' governance policies, which Cameroon is adhering to that. And I strongly believe that the institutions that the party is putting in place is to meet up with good governance administration, which we trust that we're going to meet up with the 2035 emergency plans of the head of state. If we actually are conversant and we are conscious as individuals, and we are committed to work with respect to the institutions and the state policies put in place, we would have no one to blame or direct multipartism system or pushing the blames at the ruling party in place. I think the government of Cameroon today is actually doing all in its capacity to make sure that we meet up with the governance.
So you are saying that there's good governance in Cameroon. You are saying that Cameroon is well managed from your party perspective. Even when Cameroonians are unable to have their national identification card, you are saying everything is fine.
Well, regarding this,
no, generally, we are looking at good governance from a general perspective.
Yeah, of course. No, honestly speaking, even if we have to take allusions back to countries like the United States, which have existed for more than 500 years, you would tell me that they are 100% perfect. No, There's no administration which is completely perfect as we speak.
I know.
Yeah, we understand. We understand. We understand that. So we took
Mr. Atemi, who is a Pan-Africanist, will have to confirm with us if Cameroon is just 60 years old, as they say, as people are attributed to. It means that God just created us 60 years old.
What he's trying to tell us is that all Cameroonians who are 60 years today are still youths. That means we are still growing. It's not, we are not growing. We have. I'm asking you, so you are telling us that everybody at 60 years old is still a youth.
No, 500.
Let us keep America for 60 years. So people who are 60 years today are still children. Is that what you are telling us?
We are still emerging. I don't know. Are we not advancing? No, we should not completely condemn as if we are not advancing.
No, we are not.
No, there are loopholes. I don't dispute that fact. There are loopholes, but it doesn't imply that we are not.
We are not.
Okay, come on, you can't just be stagnant to say we are not advancing. No, that is bias.
No. Your party is, but the Cameroonians are not.
No, come on.
And your party is not Cameroon. Cameroon is for Cameroonians. It's not for CPDM.
Of course, and you are the one looking.
Whatever policies you people put in place should reflect the demands of the society.
But it does, and that's why administration and good governance now is being directed. How do you explain
the fact that you people represent a people and you don't reflect the people?
How do you say we don't represent the people?
How do you reflect the people?
How don't we represent? Tell me
why do you have all the agitations?
Why we don't reflect the people?
How do you explain the fact that Cameroon every year, every 10 years is able to produce 7 to 8 poor million Cameroonians? How do you explain that fact with all the natural resources that we have in this country? How is the resources being managed to improve the lifestyle of the people? You people are so intelligent, we don't refuse. You should have used that intelligence, that intellect to protect the poor, upgrade and improve the lifestyle of your people, because an economy is built by your human resources and not loans and aid you people keep taking out there. Use your nation, the people of your nation, to build this country. That's not what you people are doing.
Yes, Mr. Bako.
Briefly, let you respond to that. Ginny Elvis, briefly, I know we have 10 minutes to discuss on this issue of governance so that we can move to Bamenda Babaji Road. Briefly, looking at where we are now, everybody, you've talked about that the problem of Cameroon is both and means that it is multi-party politics and good governance. And bad governance and governance issue. How do we go from where do we go from here? What solutions are you proposing? The PAP is proposing.
Before I get to what we are proposing, I want to make certain things clear. Our legal man here says something which is important, that creating political parties is a constitutional right. It is something we do not dispute. But it is not because it's a constitutional right that people should just create the parties because it's a right for them to create. People should just create because they have an opportunity to create parties. But you should create a party with a vision for the people, for the nation. You should create a party with a vision for the people. And what I was saying here is that there are people who create parties not because they have a dream for this country, not because they have a dream for Cameroonians, but because they have a dream for themselves, and rather they stand to back the system that is already in place, which is nailing the country already. That's the first thing. Secondly, when you mention the fact that the CPDM is so deeply rooted, we don't dispute the fact, but let the CPDM for once organize free and fair elections, therefore, so that everybody takes part on an equal ground, and then we see how far they will go with their deeply rooted nature. Now, then the next I will say, Mr. Tamai Jarvis, is that the problem, one thing you should understand too, is that when we talk about the one-party system under Ayijo and then the multi-party system under Mr. Biapol, in reality, you realize that it goes back to one thing: the vision of the person leading, and not just whether it's a matter of multipartism or a one-party system. Because even under multipartism, this country could still have taken giant strides in development, because it depends first on the vision that the person leading has. And that's why I started this program by saying that when you have a leader, one, who never came into a legitimate vote, who was handed power, who was handed a vision that was not his, who was handed a vision to which he was never perhaps associated from inception, it becomes a problem for him to lead that vision. And those are the things we are facing in this country, because we do not know exactly what our present leader's vision was for Cameroon, or what his vision for Cameroonians is, because we are talking about governance. When we take the Bamenda Road, the Babaji, we shall be getting back to it. A project that someone announces 30 years back, until today, it is nowhere to be found. And a CPDM member here tells us that we are still just 60 years old. So we are saying, therefore, that 30 years after a project was announced and it is not materialized, we should not feel accountable for anything, because we are still babies. I want to remind my dear brother here that Israel is just barely 70 years too. We cannot meet up with Israel in any aspect. We cannot. Good. Remember that Israel when they just declared themselves an independent state, that was May 1948, they got attacked by 7 Arab states. And they had to defend themselves. Even by that time, they did not have what they call the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. And then secondly, Israel is 65% of a desert. I will even say it was. Because they have transformed the desert into arable land. They cultivate oranges, vegetables, and there are three things that they call, and flowers, which they export to the whole world. But here we are, just a difference of about 10 years. And we cannot showcase anything, and CPDM diehard supporters always want to give us the impression that we are just a newly created nation. I deny that. We cannot claim that we are a newly created nation at 60. At 60 years in your family, you are an old man, or you are in death. We should be serious about some of the things we say.
The question is, people always say 60 when it comes to defending policies, but when it comes to issue of Anglophone crisis, they will tell you Cameroon existed before the Germans. So are we saying that
is a problem, Mr. Samai?
I want us to get this clear. Is it that Cameroonians or Cameroon only existed, God created us 60 years ago, or
Mr. Tamai Jarvis,
before the Germans? When you come now to
Mr. Tamai,
we are talking about
the problem is that it is like the problem with politics in Cameroon is like the issue with Christians, where people go into the Bible, for instance, and they quote particular verses of the Bible and they give them an interpretation that suits them in their own comfort zone. That's the problem we have with the CPDM regime. They decide to take examples only when it will suit them in their own situation. But now, let's come back to the question you just asked me, the way forward.
Yes, PAP.
Mr. Ebako said something very, very important. Systems are older than persons, but we are bound to one day change those systems. But the system can be changed already first if we begin with our educational system. Because you know, when you look at Cameroon today, the education some of us went through is far different from what we find today. What am I talking about? Civic education. Children of nowadays, we should be able to put in place an educational system where children grow from birth with that love for nation. Because the irony is that when you go out into society today, I'm a teacher. When you hear the ideas from students, from young children, then I begin to lament for this country in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years. Because you have children who openly declare if they were to be put in certain offices, they would do worse than what the present ministers are doing. And they say it openly. Why? That basic education for love is no longer there. I'm going back to Israel. Israel is not what...
As a teacher, who is supposed to transfer this knowledge? Is it appropriate knowledge?
I am a teacher in just one school, my brother. I am not a teacher in all the schools. What I'm saying is that it comes back to government. I'm saying, my brother, I cannot...
But he's saying that Cameroon is being managed well, that everything is okay.
No, Mr. Tamai, there's one thing you don't seem to understand here.
No,
I have said, as a teacher, I'm telling you already based on what I get from children, and he's blaming me. I teach my children. Are we together? But I alone will not teach all the children in Cameroon. I am not a teacher in all the schools. What I'm saying is that if this regime already first could create a possibility that in all our schools, let's go back to that civic education that we grew up in, the love for nation. And I'm just saying that is the problem with nations like Israel.
We have that
people who grow and are
civics
willing.
And ethics. We have civics and ethics in the university. We have civics.
The problem, Mr. Tamai Javid, is that the problem is this, please.
Are you saying that civics and ethics in university is not being done effectively? Are you saying civics that we did in primary school and secondary school all through is not effective? That the programs have been so good governance.
And today
can I answer you?
Yes.
The programs have been so diluted that they even create a subject, but the content is not what we desire to teach our children. Let's come back. Ask yourself, as an Anglophone or a British Southern Cameroonian, why do you think that more than 70% of our students today from the British Southern Cameroon or those who are at GC no longer going for religious studies? The regime killed the subject because a child doesn't see any reason again why he should go for moral education, study for 5 years, and then even succeed in it, and the government tells you they don't need it when it comes to employment. How do you create a country with people without morality? It doesn't make sense. Today, children no longer have interest in moral education, in religious studies. Why? Because the system has killed that anxiety in the children, such that today the few who do it perhaps they either come from mission schools or they are even forced by some teachers to want to go for it. So the first thing is our level of education. 2, Cameroonians at their individual levels should learn to at least work from a certain degree of a conscience. When you are placed somewhere to do something, you should learn to ask yourself, even if you are not going to do it for yourself, what about your children who are to come? When you decide to embezzle all the state budget for yourself, what about the neighbor who hasn't got that privilege to embezzle like you do? What about the neighbor's own children? Those are some of the questions that if Cameroonians could begin to ask themselves and work from that perspective, at least we could have hope for this country. But unfortunately, I say the greatest problem comes from governance, and it is incarnated by one man, Mr. Biapol, because his people don't do the right thing, but he does not sanction them. He does not call people to book.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elvis. Barrister Ewule, where do we go from here? You've listened to the speakers. Maybe you want to add something so that we'll move to the next topic.
Yes, I just want to say that the way forward, first of all, the over-centralization of the government is a major problem. You look at
we are not talking about decentralization.
No. Let me come. I'm saying that there is no. Please, I'm saying that. Please. No. See, I am saying that the over centralization of power is what is causing the problem. Look at when we get to the second topic, where we are going to be talking about the Babaju Bamenda road. You will see that the Guardian Post is attacking the Minister of Public
The first edition said, please sack.
Yes, but you see, please, I am saying that under normal circumstance, it should not be the minister. Now we have regional president. We have regional presidents who have to address such issues. We have the mayors. We have even some of the administrators. But what is happening? Power is still in Yaoundé. If Yaoundé don't decide, those things will not
some
go.
People will say,
that is the problem we have now.
It's because these regional presidents have decided to toe the party line by not taking powers into their own hands, because the constitution, you are a legal mind, the constitution give them that prerogative to take charge. They say the constitution says the executive of that region has any of these regional presidents taking that power, and the governor say, hey, let's report about it. Let's see that he was locked up because he wanted to execute. Is it because maybe they have decided to stay at their own end? How do you explain that in Limbe it is the mayor that will raise an issue to the Minister of Decentralization, where we have the regional president in Southwest who folded his hand and is instead talking about something else?
Please, can I say something? I want to say that up till now, it is very embarrassing for me to say this, but all this issue of the regional council, it is just as if there was some pressure and they said, let's just create the regional, because up till now, these people, most of them don't know why they are there. There is no roadmap. Up till now, I have not seen any regional president come up and with a clear roadmap that this is what we have to do. Most of them have been voted in, they don't even know what to do. But let me see. And now they are saying that, they have not started working. The vice president, Mr. Chief Atemebako, was complaining that even their chairs, there are no chairs in the office, there are no computers, there is no money. No, and this is why I'm saying that the over centralization is a problem, because to be honest with you, they don't even know what to do. They are waiting for, they say that they are waiting for funds they are waiting for funds from Yaoundé. So they have not started doing any work. But I want to say that I'm saying that
everyone
because sir,
I'll differ with you on that point. Yeah.
Yes. No, but it is your right to differ with me. But the first thing I will say here is, most of the time,
the same as you will tell me here sitting as a councillor that I don't know what to do. No. That's another thing. No, I have a lot of workload. Before me as I'm talking here.
It is a very big shoe that they have given to these regional councillors, but the shoe is like it has holes all over. They have given a big book with nothing inside. Because to be honest, they say they are waiting for funds from Yaoundé, but we are still waiting for them. What stops them from even having consultation? They could have consultation, and even they say they don't have halls and the rest.
in Boya, they could be using the council, the Boya council, to hold consultation, maybe to talk to pressmen and to talk to mayors, to talk to how are they going to work. Up till now, since they came into office, they have done.
You invite them to media outing, they don't come.
No. What I am saying is, and all this boils down to governance. All this boils down to the fact that the powers are being centralized in Yaoundé, and that is exactly where we are now. You see that most developmental projects are decided from Yaoundé. Look, even the COVID funds now, it is the ministers that are going to answer questions. But under normal situation, if we had people coming together, civil society, other political parties, the government, we all sit together to plan a better way to manage the COVID funds. We will not see, but now the only people that we are seeing, they are calling them for questioning are the ministers. Most everything center only in Yaoundé, and this is why we are saying that we are not really getting the real decentralization that the government is preaching in the 1996 constitution.
Good afternoon to the panel. Please stop suffocating Mr. Njini and a few other panelists when they are telling the truth. We have what we need as ideologies to improve you as I'm not suffocating, I'm just wanting to get more, wanting to be more explicit. Hello panelists, especially to Mr. Atem Ebako. The spirit of Kwame Nkrumah is speaking through him. More grace to him. I am Emmanuel Ndile, the Guardian Councillor in Yaoundé. This one reads, it says, good afternoon to you in the studio. The country can't change through the ballot box, as earlier explained by panelists. Rather, a revolution, a way forward. Your message has gone through. Good afternoon, Franklin. In Yaoundé, Cameroon's problem lies in the system put in place for governance. No party is competent enough to change the government, simply because there are some organs put in place by the government that shadows themselves. Hello, guys in the studio. I tell you, this country has no democracy. This country is a failed. Yeah, a message is understood. Good morning from this House of Commons. Cameroon will never change until the president will be elected. Aijo was appointed by France and Paul Biya was appointed too. So that's why we are in where we are today. We'll take on this transition. When we come back, we will talk about Bamenda Babajiro Road in under 20 minutes. You're welcome to the second part of this program. We are looking now at second topic, which is Bamenda Babajiro Road. I'll begin with you, Atem Ebako. You've looked at this road. This is a road linking Bamenda, West Region, and other major parts of the nation. This road has been at this level where we have the Minister of Territorial Administration is from the Northwest Region. We have the former Prime Minister, who is now the Grand Chancellor, Young Philemon, from the Northwest Region. We have other top-ranking government officials from the Northwest Region of the country. We have ministers going every day to look for ways to mitigate or reduce the armed conflict in Cameroon, in the Northwest Region, and yet that road has been there, as we are saying. The Cameroon government advanced that it is insecurity that is causing the problem why that road is not constructed. What's your take on this?
Mr. Jarvis, I think that the two topics are related to each other, and they have a common origin and a common genealogy of why the things are the way they are. It's a system that has been designed. It is not an accident that that road is the way it is. It is a system. I have built a principle which I think that when I explain those principles, it's easy for Cameroonians to understand why we are the way we are and why we cannot develop and why we are under development. We are underdeveloped nation is because it is designed that way. When you build systems and structures to exploit a people, you need to be able to put in a system in place that works to favor the few and not the masses. So some of these developments that we're expecting that should have improved the life and caused, how will I put it, the flow of economy and transport from one place to another.
The road.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That this is not something that is how will I put it? It is a coincidence or it's an accident. These acts are done intentionally, and it's not only such one like this. There are so many we can cite in Cameroon. We are talking of road accidents of about 16,000 accidents every year that cost the lives of 1,200 Cameroonians minimum. It means roads in Cameroon are a major crisis. But why is it this way? And these are the things that we need to understand. Now, let me put it this way. When you have a system where I call it the 15% against the 85%, that simply means that the 15% stands to work as a government and the 85% is the population. Now, the targeted budget profit estimated to exploit from the Cameroonians is 85%. That simply means that you need to keep 85% of its population under abject poverty. And then the 15% is what I call the government, which is endorsed with power. All of the major contract loans, credit, donations and everything, ammunition passes through the government. So the government becomes a very strong force in order to repress the 85% to support the prices of those that are above him. And that is why you realize that the system in Cameroon does not favor Cameroonians. How do you expect the fact that our presidents, majority of our presidents have become governors in France, that Macron calls a meeting and they all fly go to Macron to go to a meeting, is to tell you that these nations are not run by the people who make the majority in this nation. It doesn't run by the citizens. So that is why you realize that if you don't keep the people in this state, you cannot exploit them.
Okay. I
don't know if you understand. And that is why you realize that the government becomes a very strong force. Why do you think that we're having agitation, insecurity, rebels, jihadists, Islamic extremists? It's only because of bad leadership. This is the rise of all the insecurity. So we are the ones creating those things because of a system which seeks its own interest and not the interest of the general people. So these are the problems that we are saying, that if Cameroon is ever going to move forward, it's not the opening of parties, it's not the opening of organization, institution, decentralization. It's a change of system, and this change can only come when Cameroonians themselves will decide to understand that Cameroon is not for poor beer, Cameroon is not for CPDM, Cameroon is for Cameroonians, and Cameroonians should find a common need to come together and pressurize the state to make policies that favors them. And then secondly, Cameroonians should understand that they should grow to a point where they should be able to own their own economy, process their own raw material, industrialize their own natural resources. Okay. I don't know if you understand me. And then own a currency. So these are the things that when we don't go back to history, we'll not be able to influence positive energy in such a way that we can build legacies for our children tomorrow. As we stand right now here, if BR leaves, CPDM leaves, what they have left Cameroon with is only debts, loans for generations upon generations. That's not what we want.
Thank you, Mr. Atem. Amungwa, the President of the Republic made it clear that the ring road, he will construct the ring road. That was during the period of the rebranding of CPDM, and when he went to the military anniversary in Bamenda, he said he will personally supervise the ring road. As we speak right now, that vision seems to be hanging in the balance. As we speak, Minister Paul Atanganji said our government has won the war against terrorism in the northwest and southwest region, that just few pockets of resistances are left. But some government officials are now coming back and saying that the reason why Bamenda, I want Eli to put it on screen, that the reason why the road, Bamenda Babaju Road, is where it is now is because contractors are being kidnapped, machines are being burnt, and that is because of insecurity caused by the non-state armed groups in that road. Are we saying that the president was to come to that road and stay there for 5 months, there will be insecurity in that road?
No. Regarding what you just cited, when it comes to certain issues which are very sensitive and objective, I don't take side. The road itself is a major developmental factor which I personally have a lot of chaos with the central administration regarding this issue of the road. I remember in 2013 when we went for the burial of late Honorable Francis Quine. All the members of government were present, except the head of state, as a state personality who was absent but was represented by the then Prime Minister Philemon Yang. And I can recall one of the ministers stood up to apologize in church in a sermon due to the late start of the sermon because of the dilapidated state of the road. My car was broken on that road, and other ministers suffered the same consequences. And honestly speaking, at this juncture, I cannot take sides to give a tangible reason why at this juncture this road is still under this dilapidating state. It's not fair. There's a lot of impartiality, and when there's impartiality.
So who is failing here now?
Yeah, so far I think
because it's a party that's in power.
Yes.
The Prime Minister Yang Philemon is a CPDM militant. We have senators, top senators in Bamenda who are CPDM militant, who uses that road, whose family uses that road on a daily basis, like Honorable Walan Richard. We come now to Honorable Ngala Gerard this year.
Honorable Oliver Awo, which is from my constituency as well.
People,
eventually that the roads.
And yet we still have that situation, and they say it's insecurity because we have seen caterpillars being burned down. Yes,
we cannot waive that fact of insecurity.
Said they have defeated terrorism.
No, that was just an overstatement. So far, you can't wage a war. No, you can't wage. No, we talk about when I say an overstatement, there is no war. When you talk about war are not fought internally. War are not fought internally. Who is fighting who? I mean, you cannot be declaring we won the war. When you say we win a war, it seems as if you are in a battlefield with an opponent who is an outsider. You were talking about an internal crisis which the people are making demands for some legitimate and genuine claims, which I think they have. So the right. No, they have the right. I told you I don't take sides when it comes to certain issues.
So going back to that issue is governance and
yes. So far, I think at this juncture, I think see the head of state have put institutions in place and state policies, management, decentralization, and all of which I'm thoroughly involved. We are accountable. I talk here. I take a lot of risk. Yes, of course, and I'm the chairman of transport and project committee as well. And if I tell you, last year when I took over office, we did everything within 4 months. We executed 5 kilometers of air routes, and I was equally on the trench of the Bamenda main road linkage to the University, which today that project has come to a halt. Even called on the controllers from central administration to come and let's debate on the reports which I have on the ground. They say no, there's a lot of insecurity. Yes, of course I was adopted, and since then the project has come to a halt, and I will not sit here to find a major road. Let me tell you, Jarvis, I've gone through. You have 5 highway major roads which are being under the organigram of our national roads here. I don't even find. You have highway road number 1, which is Yaoundé linking to Betua, Garua, Marua, and Chad, and then you have highway road number 2. Yeah, so
go from here briefly.
Yeah, so far seconds. No, I think
that the elite in Northwest are deceiving the people or is it that it is insecurity?
No, when it comes to insecurity, that one is visible to the same of each and everyone. There's insecurity. But let me tell you, in 2019, there was what was carried out as social assessment. Social assessment simply was a team deployed on the field to be able to determine by the favor of the people if the project which is at hand should be carried out or not. And from that survey, the people on the ground actually gave the clearance that the route, which is a primordial factor for development, should continue.
Thank you.
And I think the minister, Jomisi, should be held responsible. He is not actually carrying out his duties in charge of that project.
You will not. You are opposition, but you will not refuse the fact that it is because of insecurity that that road is like that, because we now have use of IED, improvised explosive device. So who should we blame? Should we not blame the non-state armed groups for making the people of Bamenda to suffer? Because if not of their constant attack of that road would have been constructed ere long. The same thing we have the Kwakwa Mbonge road, which you have constructors that were kidnapped during the early phase of the conflict and they abandoned their resources. We all saw how equipments were burnt down from the road in Bamenda. And so the government is saying that you should tell your people to slow down so that we construct the road.
Jarvis, I don't know why you start by presenting that I'm opposition and so we should not deny the fact.
No,
let me speak honestly here. In my opinion and that of the PAP, we have never denied that there is insecurity in that part of the country. We have never denied that. On the contrary, we have insisted severally that government who has the yam and the knife should do everything to put in place what is necessary for dialogue so that peace can return. And of course, when you look at our topic, it talks about negligence or insecurity. I think it is both. It is because government has neglected the Anglophone crisis that it has gotten to where we are today, and so the road cannot even the work on the road cannot start. And secondly, the government today is hanging on the issue of insecurity, at the same time telling us that there is no war or that they even won the war, but we know there is insecurity all the same. Now they are hanging on the idea of insecurity, but the question is, from 1991 when the ring road, for instance, was announced, till 2016 when the crisis started, what happened that the road was not constructed? When I looked at information concerning the ring road, for instance, I think it says something like the road was supposed to have a 20-year lifespan, meaning therefore that the road even expired already without ever being constructed, because we are 3 decades after it was announced, because he announced in 1991. In 2010 he reaffirmed that he was the head of state, that he was personally going to supervise. It takes us back to the issue of governance we were just discussing about, Mr. Tamai Jarvis. When the head of state himself personally announces a project, comes 10 years after without starting it, and then says he is going to personally supervise, and then another 20 years after, that project is nowhere to be found. Why should we even blame the ministers? His ministers are following his footsteps. Ministers are doing textually what the leader is teaching them to do. He is preaching by his own examples, and they are following his examples. It's a problem of governance that begins with the head of state, and of course there is insecurity, which ironically we all admit to it, but they are the same people who tell us that there is no insecurity because they have won the war and that there are just some pockets of resistance.
Because we see opposition members crying about the road, crying foul that the government should do something about that road, the government should do something about this road. But ironically, we don't see this opposition member calling the Amber guys to say, okay, Amber guys, please don't attack this road, and I'll give a window of opportunity
Mr. Tamai,
to be constructed.
If there is a question amongst you,
your peace-loving people can use that road. Maybe.
Can I answer that question?
The opposition are just playing foul.
Mr. Tamai, you said something we should tell our people to drop the arms. I don't know.
I'm not saying you should tell your people. I'm saying that it's not time for opposition parties to come together and tell them.
I don't know, and I don't know which opposition you are talking about, because even right here on your platform, on several occasions, be it me or any other representative of the PAP on your platform, we have often decried the violence in the British Southern Cameroon, and we have often called for the silencing of guns from both the states.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about the route. Yes. It's not time for opposition parties to please say, because we see them harming at the government. The road is bad. Government, the road is bad. Is it not time for this same opposition party to say, hey, Amber, please hold on, let it tie this road. It is our road. Even if you have your independent, we'll use the road. Please, Amber, hold on, let it tie this road. Is it not time?
And that is what I'm saying. We are not
doing that, but we have seen them hammering on the government.
Mr. Tamai, that is the answer I'm giving you by saying, It is not today that we started asking on both the government and the Amber fighters to drop their arms for relative peace to return to the regions. We have been doing so. But the problem is severally, except
to tell the non-state armed group that Bamenda Road is bad. Stop attacking the government so that they.
I am talking here as a communication secretary to the PAP, and I say on several occasions we have. No, if you are talking about issuing a communication with respect to the Bamenda, no, we at the PAP we have been looking at insecurity from the general perspective. I would say that it is not only the road particularly, there are other issues. We have been issuing our community with respect to insecurity in the region as a whole. But now, okay, good. We are talking about a particular issue, my brother. We are talking about a particular issue here, but what I want to let you understand therefore is that this particular issue we are talking about here comes back to your government. Because if they had even listened to us for our cries that government should at least call for genuine dialogue, we should not have been who we are today. And I'm saying therefore, the same failed regime should not hang therefore on the issue of insecurity today, caused by maybe the Amber as a claim, to tell others that's why the road has not been constructed, because this road was supposed to have been finished long before 2016 when the crisis started. You were asking why way forward. The way forward is,
what has your party
done? Our MP, listen, it's not a matter of what my party has done. Briefly, the power is with you and not my party. Maybe when we take part, we see what we are capable of doing. The way forward, Standard Jabis, we should go back to 1961 and redefine things from there. Let Cameroonians be able to agree on the form of the state. Go back maybe to the federation. It could be it is not a matter of the road staying that way. I think we should go back. If Mr. Brigade decides to we are going back to the table to sit and discuss, people go to the table. Once we get into a federal system, people shall have the autonomy to manage their affairs. They should forget about their so-called decentralization that has never been put in place, and that does not actually work.
Thank you, Barrister. Briefly, you have looked at this road. The government says no.
You should not be prompt measures when the problem is his government.
Briefly.
The problem is your government, Mr. Amunga. Don't know prompt measures should come from Mr. Biafra, your head of state.
Okay, thank you.
It should come from the citizen.
We are consuming barristers and barrister. The government says insecurity on the road. Some government officials says no, we have won the war. The still come by saying security. Opposition members are saying government fix this road, government fix this road. The same opposition members are blaming the government, but none of the opposition members or civil society activists, none of the civil society organization has written a strong letter to the non-state armed groups and say stop attacking contractors at that road, give a window of opportunity for that road to be constructed so that people can use that road.
So that is what you are saying, Mr. Tam Jarvis, is very correct, because the major issue now, and you cannot blame the government. Put yourself in the part of the government at this particular time. You cannot blame the government, because now there is issue of insecurity, whether you like it or not. Most of caused by the non-state armed group. Whether you want to put it how, whether it is Amber or thieves, but we know as a matter of fact that contractors have been kidnapped.
Machines been burned down.
Machineries have been burned down, and it makes it difficult for them to work. But some questions we are going to ask some questions that this road was supposed to be constructed since, but because under normal circumstance, that is a major a link between the west region and the northwest region, and these are this is a strategic road that was supposed to be constructed before the crisis. But if the government now is saying the problem is a crisis, we agree with them. We agree that there is insecurity.
Thank you.
No, please,
briefly, we are out of time.
Yes, but we should note that the government has all it takes to put security and do that road, because the government have all the military in place. They could put the military in place and do.
That's why I asked Mr. Mungwa that they're talking about insecurity, that if the government decide that if a minister can want to stay in that area for 6 months, will there not be security in that area?
That's what, so what we are saying.
So both sides, the separatists and the government, are playing a ping pong game.
I don't want to get to that, but we know that the insecurity is being caused. All of us know where the insecurity is coming from.
Thank you very much, Ginny Elvis, for coming. And your last word before we go?
Well, I just want to say it was a pleasure being here with you, and just to say once again that the government should be serious and sit up and do exactly what they are supposed to do. There is insecurity, we do not dispute that fact, but the government has denied to put in place measures to at least to ensure that they silence the guns and call people to talk, so that we could go back to the right decisions and do what we are expected to do.
Of course, Mr. Atem, thanks for accepting the invitation.
Thank you, Tamer Jarvis. I think that a way forward is that Cameroonians should regain their honor and dignity and their sovereignty. From there, they can now decide the form of state which they would like to use to develop themselves. And then secondly, politics must not be discussed under a political party, and you must not be a head of state in order to affect changes in your country. And then thirdly, I also want to say that it is really important if we can be able to use our intelligence to educate and to how will I put it, to secure what we really want and to defend the truth, instead of using that intelligence to defend a lie. Is not going to help us.
Mr. Mungwa, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Jarvis, once more, and just want to make my co-panelists understand that we have all the institutions put in place for good governance, and actually we are moving progressively to meet up with our emergency 3025 plan, and also insisting on a total ceasefire, which I've repeated on this platform.
Okay,
it's not helping our economy forward.
Okay, Barrister Ewule, thanks for driving to Boya and to be here in Douala.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. And as we say, the major problem is in our country is governance. The over-centralization of power in Yaoundé has kept us where we are. I think that the powers that be should look into this issue so that we can have the effective decentralization that the government wants us to have.
This program will be rebroadcast today at exactly 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. we'll have a rebroadcast of this same program. At exactly 9:30 p.m. on Monday, we'll have a rebroadcast. This program will be on our YouTube channel. BT Media Group is our YouTube channel. Visit our Twitter handle, My Media Prime, Facebook page, My Media Prime, Instagram, My Media Prime. And of course, you can visit us on www.btmediagroup.net is our website. And every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30, the program comes up 12 to 1:30. I leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matter is your matter. No matter the matter, what matter is your matter. And what should matter for you is that the truth is God. You can only kill the teller, not the truth. If you kill the teller, the truth remains to haunt you. My name is Tamer Jarvis from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Feng Jombange. Au revoir.